right, well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for the February Open Forum. And I have told you that I would hold this forum once a month, and I'll share with you the state of the college and where we stand right now, and then I will take questions from you. I want today to start by giving you an update about facilities. And as you know, there have been a lot of questions about the 1550 Evans. And at one of the board meetings, there were people coming in because apparently people had thought that the 1550 Evans would not go through. I want to reassure everybody, if you were to look at the board agenda for tomorrow, you will find that there is an open session, an action item related to 1550 Evans. Our bond counsel has informed the college as to what can and cannot be done with bond funds. And the bond counsel has advised the college on what to do and how to proceed with the 1550 Evans. You will find that bond funds can only be used for properties that belong to the college, to City College of San Francisco. So tomorrow, if you read the item, it's the very first action item, the board is going to be asking, if the board votes that resolution, would be asking for the City and Public Utilities Commission to cede the 1550 property to CCSF, and at that point, the college can use bond funds to upgrade that facility. I have informed the PUC, and I have also informed board supervisor, the president of the board of supervisors, Mr. Shaman Walton, that such an item is on the agenda for tomorrow. The second item that I want to talk about when we talk about facilities, there have been many comments, in public comments. There are many people have asked about the DRT. I want to reassure everybody again that the DRT is of prime interest to the college, and that building will be constructed with bond funds. In fact, the first mention of the DRT when it was referred to as the Performing Arts Education Center was in 2005. And between 2005 and October 2019, more than $12 million have been spent on that building, not counting what was spent in the last year. So, but all along, there was never any kind of agreed upon size for the building. There were designs that were as big as 115,000 square feet. There were designs on 100,000 square feet, but it was a back and forth as to how big the property would be, how big the Diego Rivera Theater would be. You will notice in the board agenda for tomorrow, there is an action item that is setting a square footage on that building. And that square footage is roughly 77,000 square feet. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it is 17,025 or so square feet. So that's an action item that the board will vote on tomorrow. So at least we will know, and designers, builders that will be working on that building will know how big, will know the square footage of the building when they undertake that task. The second item relating to the Diego Rivera Theater is the board will be passing, or if the board so approves, the board will be asking the college, will be instructing myself and the college administration to go out for RFQs and RFPs to pick a designer builder before the end of June to design the building to submit it to DSA for approval and start the building. When I told you in November, when I sent you the letter telling you that we had terminated McCarthy's contract, I told you there would be practically no delay in the construction of the building. The maximum delay as it is right now will be 1 semester. Because at the time McCarthy was terminated, there was no design for the building on an approved square footage. So we have all that document, we have all that now. And once a designer builder gets approved in June, that group will be working diligently with the user groups on the understanding that the building is a 77,000 square foot building with a theater between 600 and 650 seats and the mural. And the goal is to have all that submitted to DSA for approval by the summer of next year, which is just 1 semester behind schedule. And once that is done, DSA will take about 12 to 18 months. And we should be able to break ground on that building in the fall, at latest, the fall of 2023. And that building should be available for classes, for performances by the spring of 2026. So that's what I can tell you about the Diego Rivera Theater. The other thing about facilities is, as you know, the board already approved for the Student Affairs building to move forward, for the design to move forward. And for that building to happen, the Conlon Hall has to be torn now. So at the board meeting tomorrow, the board will be approving the hiring of LPAS that will work with the college community, will be in touch with everybody that may or may not be affected by that building, by Conlon Hall demolition, and also by working with other areas on campus to find out how best to accommodate the current tenants of Conlon Hall. And once that is done, the goal is to have Conlon Hall demolished sometimes in summer or early fall, so that breaking ground for the Student Affairs building can take place. And we're all looking forward to major construction taking place at the Ocean Center, or the ocean side of CCSF. That's all I have to share with you about facilities. The next item I want to talk to you about is the return to campus, the fall return to campus. As you know, San Francisco County is still in purple, but today the county lifted the quarantine for people coming back to San Francisco who have been outside of the Bay counties. It is hopeful, we hope that next week, San Francisco may be in the red zone. And subsequently, it is likely that after 2 to 3 weeks, we should be in the orange zone. And as a result, it's going to be easier for all of us to start working on getting back to campus. What I'm going to do, I know that Vice Chancellor Tom Bogle has been working closely with faculty, with staff on a plan for the fall semester. And I'm going to ask Vice Chancellor Bogle to take a couple minutes or so to share with all of you the kind of work he has done and where we stand for the fall semester schedule. Vice Chancellor Bogle.
Thank you, Chancellor Vurdien. We continue to meet and consult with the San Francisco Department of Public Health on our return to campus efforts. Just a quick recap of where we are right now. Since early December, the DPH has continued to strictly limit the kinds of in-person activities that we and other institutions of higher education can conduct. We currently have in-person instruction in allied health, administration of justice, and fire science, as well as contactless distribution of library materials and contactless distribution of specific departmental instructional materials. At the beginning of the semester, we also had in-person registration for non-credit classes at the Ocean campus and at several different centers. We also currently have in-person athletics, an activity that required special approval from SFDPH and which requires a rigorous testing regime. We are anticipating that SFDPH will ease restrictions as San Francisco moves out of the purple tier and into the red. And we are engaged in internal planning efforts for an expansion of in-person activities once SFDPH gives us the go-ahead. We have a couple of different areas of instruction in the spring that we are in-person lab activities that we are just about ready to go with, and that should synchronize well with the movement of San Francisco out of the purple tier. One of the challenges that we have in doing planning is that SFDPH does keep their cards close to the vest. We had a regular meeting with them this past Monday, where they mentioned that they are writing updated guidance in anticipation of an improved public health situation, but they didn't really give any indications about what this update might entail. And so again, that presents some challenges in terms of our planning efforts, but continue we must. In terms of the summer and the fall, at this point, we're expecting that summer will look a lot like spring, with in-person classes in essential areas and perhaps some expanded access to in-person lab classes. We are currently anticipating that fall 2021 will bring a very improved public health situation, but that there will continue to be social distancing requirements from SFDPH. As a result, we're planning for expanded in-person instruction and student services, while at the same time anticipating that most of our class offerings and services will continue to be remote. The fall schedule of classes is currently under development, and we will be engaged in conversations college-wide about specific fall plans during this development phase. We anticipate providing more specific details once the schedule is published in early May. Thank you, Chancellor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor Bogle. The next item I want to go over is the HERF funds and the CARES fund and so on. I mean, I have heard a lot of talk about the college having received $25 million and that perhaps that money could be used for many things at the college. But let us be clear on one thing here. That fund comes with all kinds of restrictions, and the funds need to be spent mostly on students. And the funds need to be spent by the first week of May. I'm going to ask Vice Chancellor John Alamin, who has been working with multiple people on campus. We have even put a committee consisting of faculty and department chairs with the support of the Senate to look at how these funds can be used to better help students on campus as directed by the federal government. Vice Chancellor John Alamin, could you please tell us a little bit about that?
Thank you, Chancellor Vurdien, and good afternoon, everyone. As everyone is aware, we have received 3 tranches of funding from the federal government to deal with the higher education emergency relief. These funds are to be provided. There are roughly about 15 different areas for which funding can be used. Some of the areas apply specifically to our college. Others apply to other 4-year institutions who have functions such as dormitories, who receive tuition, and other type of sources which don't necessarily apply to a 2-year public college. So essentially, of the 15 different criteria that we use for reporting, I'll share with you some of the areas in which we currently are looking to make sure that if we have allowable expenditures in these particular areas, that we use the funds towards those specific purposes so that we don't face the chance that any unallowable expense that is included will therefore fall back on the college and then become a potential general fund pressure or expense. One of the items, is Chancellor Vurdien pointed out, is we are to use these funding to provide additional emergency financial aid grants to students. Now, the federal government has provided us with both student aid and institutional portion aid. Of our most recent allocation award, while it was designated and it's roughly over $12 million, while it is for institutional purposes, they do have a caveat and language within that, is that to the extent possible, we can use that funding to provide additional student financial aid to students in addition to the funding that they already provided. So those are one of the criterion that we're looking at in order to make sure that we fully expend those funds. We can, if needed, provide reimbursements for fee refunds to students. At this point, that hasn't necessarily been an issue, but it is an allowable area that we're going to check and see if, in fact, if fee refunds are required. We have this funding that's available where we could use it. We also can use this fund to cover the cost of providing additional technology and hardware to students. This consists of laptops or tablets, as well as any additional technology fees. ITS is currently looking and considering additional items which we can purchase to assist students in this endeavor. We already have provided Chromebooks and other technology. We'll continue to look at how we can maximize these funds to continue to provide this type of equipment. We also can use this funding to provide or subsidize the cost of high-speed internet for students and to help faculty transition to online environments. This is also allowable, and it's also one of the areas in working with Vice Chancellor Bogle and his team. We're figuring out how we can supplement and assist faculty as well as assist students, and Vice Chancellor Cooper Wilkins, her area, with making sure that we provide needed equipment for our students so that they can succeed in this online environment. One of the other areas that we're looking at is also dealing with campus safety and operations. This really deals with providing personal protective equipment, barriers in classroom, as well as making sure that if there are any additional costs related to security and making sure that the campus and our other district centers are secure, dealing with the fact that we now have a number of resources which are not which are unmanned. There's been a lot of graffiti and other things which are going on throughout the district and some of our centers. Being able to provide an appropriate response to that is also considered an allowable expense. One of the other items, purchasing, leasing, renting instructional equipment and supplies such as lab equipment or computers in order to reduce the number of students who share equipment in those classes and activities which we have equipment latent demands. This is also ITS is considering and looking at this, and we're putting together and have asked the department chairs to put together a list of such equipment. Some of these items, for example, using cameras for remote instruction are some of the areas which we're looking to supplement, and this funding could be utilized for that source. Also looking at providing faculty and staff training and online instruction, providing funds to those who provide training, which is in addition to their job responsibilities. These are allowable uses. Purchasing, leasing, or renting additional equipment or software to enable distance learning, or upgrading campus Wi-Fi access and extending open networks to parking lots and other public spaces. These are also areas that we're looking at, and we will be providing some proposed expenditure plans to utilize these funds. So in essence, these are a number of the areas that we're currently considering. Again, of the first issuance of funds, we have expended roughly 60% of that. All of the funds which were provided for student aid and support were, as we received them in April, went out shortly thereafter in May. The institutional portions, which are about 3.5 million, we spent roughly half of that. So there's some remaining balance that we have that we need to expend. There also been some funds which have been also allocated as part of their CARES Act funding for the state portion. Those have a little bit longer expenditure period because they're state funds. They total roughly about $1 million, and there's another small allocation for roughly about 27,000. But the majority of our funds, which are the federal student aid and institutional portions, as Chancellor Vurdien pointed out, those have an expenditure deadline of May the 6th or May 15th, which is based upon the original CARES Act. That original date of that particular piece of legislation was in April and May of 2020. And the language regarding the HERF expenditures is that funds must be expended within a year of the award. And so I know there's some confusion over why we have such a short time frame in which to utilize these funds, but that's based upon the original award date as Congress passed this legislation in April and May of last year. So that was just some information on HERF. I hope that is helpful to the constituent community as, again, we're having discussions regarding some of the allowable uses. And in following the reporting guidelines, which have been provided by the US DOE, we're trying to make sure that we reduce any potential risk and liability for having expenses which we include in our expenditure plan. We reduce the risk of having those rejected, and therefore we having to fund those from other sources. So that is the HERF update that I have for the campus, sir.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor Alamin. The next item I want to touch on is the evaluation process for faculty, for classified staff, for administrators, and so on. As you know, we are mindful of the fact that people are working in very different circumstances, and we are very respectful of that. And as such, we have made some modifications to the way people are getting evaluated. I'm going to ask Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez, who oversees HR and is responsible for the evaluation and so on, to explain a little bit some of the changes we have brought to the evaluation process.
Yes, thank you, Chancellor Vurdien. So very quickly, through a lot of the discussions that we've had with the various units with respect to the COVID impact side letter negotiations, we've modified the evaluation process for faculty and for administrators and for classified all classified, with the exception of those that are currently on probation. The classified evaluations are currently just on hold. For faculty and administrators, for faculty, tenure track faculty will continue with their tenure review committee and the process that's described in the collective bargaining agreement. For all other faculty whose turn it was to be evaluated, and for all administrators, the evaluation process this year encompasses a page to reflect, and there are some prompts that for faculty we negotiated with AFT. So there are some prompts for the individual faculty member to respond, how their teaching was impacted, also how could the district further support their efforts in providing services to students. The same for administrators. So the individual being evaluated drafts a one-page reflection that is then reviewed by the individual's immediate supervisor, who shall ideally interact with the employee being evaluated, have a dialogue about it, and then the supervisor shall draft just a one paragraph response. For administrators, all that information, so the individual reflection statement and then the supervisor's response, that needs to be sent into Human Resources. You can put it to either my attention or Associate Vice Chancellor Clara Starr. By April 15th, we will then forward that on to Chancellor Vurdien for review and final sign off. And I understand from this morning's administrators meeting that not all administrators received that, so we will resend that. Classified, again, only those classified staff that are currently mostly the new hires, or if they're in a new promotional opportunity and they're on probation, those are the only ones that are, whose evaluations will be completed consistent with the established practice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez. The next item on the HR I want to check on very briefly. I think you all know that as of about 10 days ago, the Chancellor search has been going on, and the position closes on March 12th. The next thing is in student affairs. You know, our students work very hard. Faculty and staff are working with them despite the difficult situations in which we find ourselves. We need to recognize the work of the students and the work of the faculty. Last year, we could not have a commencement the way we would have liked to have it for the students. And this year is not going to be easy either. but we are making an extraordinary effort to recognize our students. And we will also recognize the students from last year. Vice Chancellor Dr. Lisa Cooper Wilkins has been working with faculty and staff and the team that she has to look at what we can do and how we can recognize our students' success. Vice Chancellor Wilkins, could you please share with us a little bit what we are expecting to see for commencement this year?
Thank you, Chancellor. So first, I want to express my gratitude to the Commencement Committee that has been formed that includes constituents from across the college. It includes faculty, staff, managers, and students who've come together to help to plan commencement once again this year. And so as the Commencement Committee convened and considered the public health situation that we just heard VC Vogel talk about, it's been determined that the safest possible way to recognize the hard work of our students, both from the class of 2020 as well as the class of 21, is to organize and host a virtual commencement ceremony. And many institutions have found themselves in the same situation of wanting to honor their graduates for their hard work, but do so in a safe way. And so many institutions offered the option last year and will continue to do so for this spring. And what that would entail is our college working together with some external agencies who have experience in hosting or providing some of the tools for us to host a virtual commencement ceremony. It's a wonderful opportunity for students who sometimes might not otherwise have been able to participate to do so because it is virtual. That means that we would do a lot of upfront work, pre-recording of some aspects of the ceremony. We would work hard with our bookstore to provide students the opportunity to still get and wear their regalia in the photos that they would provide for the ceremony, as well as an option that allows the students to give a brief video message of gratitude to families and friends also wearing that regalia. It's also a wonderful opportunity, not just for the CCSF family to be able to participate in watching the live stream of the commencement online, but their parents, the family, members of our community will also be able to join in the live virtual experience, as well as be able to go back to it later and watch it, and even be able to search of the experience to focus in on their particular student. So the Commencement Committee is going to continue to explore this and define which external agencies will work with to bring this experience. And then we would bring a presentation, a brief presentation to the campus community, likely through PGC, to be able to get another glimpse at what the virtual commencement will look like. It will still take place on the same day that it is currently scheduled for in May. I believe that date is May 28th, Friday, May 28th, but it will just be virtually done to allow for the safety that our public health conditions currently cause us to use this particular brand of commencement. So
thank you very much, Vice Chancellor Dr. Lisa Cooper Wilkins. You also know we have our own auditor, Mr. David James, and he has done a lot of good work already. He studied the salaries of all administrators, and that document has been shared with the various groups on campus. He's now putting the finishing touches on what we've been paying contractors on campus for the 2021 year so far, and he's also now working on getting the 1920 year taken care of, so that we can all have an idea as to how we are spending college money. After that, he'll be working on the salaries of faculty and classified staff and so on. And he'll be working also directly with the board to see if there is any special area that needs to be looking at, that he needs to look at. The last thing I want to remind all of you of is next week is a virtual Flex Day on Tuesday, March 2nd. We will have a virtual Flex Day, and I hope that you will all be present to attend the Flex Day Tuesday of next week. Other than that, I would invite you to attend board meeting tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing you there. And I'll be delighted to answer questions that you might have. And if I can't answer them, I have staff right here that will provide you with the answers. Or if we need to get more information, we'll do so and get that answer to you. Okay, Sean.
All right, thank you, Chancellor Vurdien. So this is the time of the show that you, our attendees, get to answer or ask a question of the Chancellor and the staff here. So if you would like to do so, please click on that raise hand icon that you see on the screen. You'll be unmuted by me and we'll let you ask your question. So first one up we have right now is Sally Nguyen. Sally, go ahead and unmute your mic and go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I'm quoting from the HERF website as to the use of funding. And it says, institutional portion funds may be used to defray expenses associated with coronavirus, including lost revenue, reimbursement for expenses already incurred, technology costs associated with the transition to distance education, faculty and staff trainings, and payroll. All of those are authorized under HERF funding. Contrary to your report, there is lots of room for expenses that are not direct student aid. So my question is, why do you insist on cutting classes and faculty and counselors when you could use these funds to save them and serve students? When you cancel classes, you are not serving students.
I can ask Vice Chancellor John Alamid to explain that part about classes, about payroll. It is not what many people think it is. John, could you please explain what that means for classes?
Certainly. Let me make sure. Yeah, there we go. That is the language for subsidizing the cost of classes is related to providing additional class sections if we are offering classes on site and we need to offer additional classes in order to ensure social distancing, then hiring instructors and increasing campus hours is allowable. But we are not offering or providing class sections on campus, except in maybe a couple different areas where there's on-site instruction, and in those cases that would be allowable. But for instructional salaries or to pay instructors for online instruction, the costs which are allowable is to helping with the staff training, helping with providing the technology that's required in order to do it. Those are allowable expenditures. And those are in part of the expenses that we're looking to cover. Costs that we have already incurred have been for the most part reimbursed, which were very little. But we have made whatever the youth fund costs that were associated with the early transition due to COVID. We have reimbursed the college for that. At this point, these funds that we have now are to help us in areas where we now, having determined what our additional needs are, I think Wi-Fi, campus equipment, lab equipment, and some other things are some items which we now recognize that we need, particularly as we're going to continue to provide distance learning. Then trying to figure out what the cost of those are, as well as looking at all other areas where we can use these funds in allowable uses. That's what the committee and that's what groups are working on right now for us to discuss.
Are you aware that there is a website of the uses that colleges around the country are putting that have been approved and that show a lot more creativity than what you're proposing?
I am aware of the site, and keep in mind, a number of the colleges throughout the different countries have different restrictions in terms of using lost revenue. A lot of people think about that. Currently, we're on hold harmless. We have no revenue loss. We're fully funded by the state based upon our current level of enrollment. And if we were not in a position where we were receiving hold harmless funds, then that would be an allowable use. We do not charge tuition. So we can't basically, I'm sorry, we do not have dormitories or other things in which we charge students directly and have funding loss, or we could use the funding for that type of service. But some of those applications that other colleges are using it based upon the type of services that they provide. We're not trying to be very restrictive, but we also are trying to be very careful in the fact that if we use a very liberal or non-standard interpretation, if it is rejected, then we face the cost of having to reimburse those costs from the general fund, which we do not have to deal with a unbudgeted expense. We're just trying to be cautious and careful while also allowing and following the rules and guidelines that have been established. That's all we're doing.
Sean, next question.
All right, sorry, my internet froze up there for a second. Next up, we have Dr. Patricia Nunley. Go ahead, unmute yourself. You can ask your question now.
Hi, how you doing? Hey, Chancellor.
Hi,
And
Dr. Nunley.
hey, and Diana and Tom and the others. I don't know you, but hello. Okay, so my question, I have a bunch of them, but let me do the one for Diana. So on the faculty evaluations, I put this in the Q&A too, so now you don't have to answer. Okay, so I came in with this large cohort of faculty fall 2018, right? So it's like the biggest ever that they hired all of us tenure track folks. So all of us are, you know, we're the low men and women and thems on the totem pole. So we probably are the ones that's going to get cut. So why should we even put everybody through the tenure track process this semester? And for me, I also am expected to evaluate 4 or 5 other faculty members. So I'm not understanding the logic in that. That's it. That's that one. We only get one question, right? Do we only get one or we get a couple?
We'll give you a second one.
Okay.
So let me go, if I can go ahead and respond. And so hi, Dr. Nunley, it's great to see you. So
Hey.
Please keep in mind, and you know, hope springs eternal. These March 15th notices are preliminary notices. And we're required by Education Code to send those out prior to March 15th. And it is, I just want to acknowledge that it's incredibly disruptive. It causes a lot of angst, but that's the Ed Code. We are hoping, you know, through working with our unions and other initiatives that are out there, that the May 15th notices, the number of May 15th notices will be reduced from the 160 that FTE that we have noticed on tomorrow night's board meeting. So why should you complete the tenure process? Because one never knows, right? Of course, the tenure track folks are still, you know, would suggest that you all are the most recently hired, but you still want to establish tenure. So if you're in that category where you would be recommended for tenure, you don't want to miss that opportunity, because even if there's a final notice of layoff, which would happen after the April board meeting, that has to occur prior to May 15th, there are still certain reemployment rights that would attach. And so I think it is worthwhile to complete the tenure process, but I can certainly, you know, confer with Vice Chancellor Bogle and AFT. The only thing is the tenure process is also very prescriptive in the Ed Code. And so there's not a lot of wiggle room or modification in terms of timeline that we can deal with that. I hope that answers your question.
It does, not the way I wanted it to, but okay. And so last one, thank you, Chancellor, for giving me one more. Okay, this is for the HERF funding. Okay, if I'm understanding that right, I'm a little upset here because it sounds like instead of us getting trained for what is it, that 8 hour to be remote teachers, we could have like got some more folks to come in, you know, because I know our IT people were really, you know, pressured. So we could have hired like some more folks to come in and teach some of us to be online instructors. Is that what I'm hearing? Did we like miss an opportunity?
Dr. Nunley, we have not missed an opportunity. We still can provide additional training if needed. And I know in talking with Vice Chancellor Bogle and some of the his instructional team, this is an allowable use of the funding. And we will be looking at all allowable uses. And if this is one of the needed areas where we need to provide additional support, then we will.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
I'm gonna mute myself now.
Okay. Thank you. Sean.
All right. Next up, we have Annette Moloney. Go ahead, unmute yourself, Annette.
Hi. My question, is David James's audit of administrator salaries publicly available?
It is publicly available. We have shared it with the various constituent groups. We've shared it with AFT, with the Senate, the classified Senate. We shared it with SEIU.
Where is it accessible?
Did we post it anywhere, Rosie? Well, is it posted anywhere, Rosie?
My understanding is we have not posted it because we were following process of delivering it to the constituents. So let me know where we would like to post it and we can get that done.
Okay. If you would like a copy, Ms. Moloney, we could have Rosie work with you on that.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker up is the one with the Chinese characters. I'm sorry, I can't read that. So hopefully you know who you are. Go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anita, and I was wondering with the funds that you listed, if a portion is going to our student health services and if the student health services will be prepared to deal with any outbreaks provided when we come back from, like, if we're allowed to come back to campus, are they going to be prepared to deal with any outbreaks?
Dr. Wilkins, that's your area probably, right?
Right, and Anita, thank you for your question. And I sent you a chat that indicated that I would work with our interim dean, Nguyen Lystrip, who oversees student engagement and wellness, including our health services, to get more details about what that kind of support would look like and what resources would be necessary. He currently works very closely with our public health department, but I know you have a very specific question about addressing student outbreaks. So I would need to work closely with him to understand what the response would look like and what resources would be necessary to respond.
And we are here talking of an outbreak being 3 cases on campus, right? That's what the Department of Health calls an outbreak, 3 cases.
Mm-hmm.
All right, okay. Dr. John Alamin, is there anything you want to add to that about the money part?
No, not at all. I think Dr. Cooper Wilkins is working. She's been working on assessing what some of her needs are in the student support area, and where needed, we'll provide funding to support that. All right,
Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez, I think you have something about that from the HR perspective, what we need to do. If there is an outbreak on campus, HR has a role to play. That's my understanding.
Yes, it's mostly a reporting, but with some of the turnover that we've experienced, Dr. Vurdien, is so the point person for all positive contacts is Dean Noah Lystrip. Before, if it was an employee, it would go to somebody else. But so this makes it a little easier to remember. So again, Dean Noah Lystrip is the point of contact for staff, faculty, students who report a positive result, including if you're a faculty member and you have a student who is in your class you're delivering services remotely, still report it, because they may be involved in other classes where they're not remote, or they may be a student athlete. So again, Dean Noah Lystrup is the point of contact. And then if it's an employee, Dean Lystrup coordinates with HR, and then we'll follow up. Also, Dean Lystrup is the point of contact with DPH in terms of and working very closely with them for the contact tracing. What HR will do is the notification. The new law requires us to notify the employee groups representing. So if it's, we have to notify the employees, all employees, and the employee groups of positive test. If it's an outbreak, and the new law defines outbreak as 3 or more cases in a location, then it triggers additional reporting into OSHA.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sean?
All right, at this time, I don't see any more hands, so I guess we'll take a last call for hands and questions right now. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to the Chancellor. So I guess we'll go going, gone. I see Annette's hand going up. I see Dr. Nunley's hand going up. So Annette, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi.
Yes.
This is in regards to return to campus.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that we have contracted with DSK Architects to provide services related to return to campus. And I was wondering if you could comment about what services they will be providing.
Vice Chancellor Al-Amin?
What services that who is providing again?
DSK
Architects.
DSK Architects.
So if I may, this is Diana.
Okay.
This precedes Dr. Al-Amin. So DSK was architects. So we separated from one workplace and went out for an RFP. So the former risk manager, Lal Jones Bay, worked with our purchasing department, and we went out for an RFP, and that's how DSK was selected. DSK is still, so we're working very closely with our return to campus team. And as Vice Chancellor Bogle and Vice Chancellor Cooper Wilkins are developing the return to campus plans for summer and fall, we will tap into DSK to start those assessments, right? So we're proceeding as though we're still going to have to engage in social distancing and so forth. Once Vice Chancellor Bogle, for example, advises us as to what specific areas, like right now he may just show Cloud Hall, but then what buildings or what classrooms within Cloud Hall will we be using? Once we get that information, then Vice Chancellor Al-Amin's very able staff, Associate Vice Chancellor Vasquez and Eric Birnbaum, a very talented classified staff member, they will start to engage DSK to do those kinds of assessments.
Sorry, what kind of assessments? Are they working on, like the physical spacing of distance?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So our return to campus plans, for example, we require them to be very detailed. That includes a floor plan that shows the flow of traffic, right? Because we want to make sure that that students, faculty, and staff aren't going into areas where they shouldn't be going, because then that creates an additional stress on our custodial staff, for example. So they'll be scoping out the various facilities and their intended use to see what modifications, if any, need to be made, including like taping. You've seen, if you've been on campus, some of those signs on the floor, to ensure that the 6 feet distancing is taking place.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I saw 2 hands go up, but I saw them go down. So I think Dr. Nunley, there you are. Oh, raise it again, Dr. Nunley. Makes it easier for me to unmute you. There we go.
Okay.
Go ahead and unmute yourself, Dr. Nunley.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is hard, and I don't know who's going to answer this. So maybe all of you. Okay, so I went to the meeting this morning with the community-wide thing, and one of the things they said is California is in the black. I'm like, okay, so why isn't my college? And so my question is this: what are we trying to cut to? And Tom, you know how I am. So once I know what you're trying to do, I'm going to try to figure out a way to get something. So can you, any of you answer, what are we trying to cut to? So then I could start thinking about how we exist in that new reality. I know it's real philosophical, but can you guys make it really practical? That's it.
If you could define your question, what do you mean? But what are we trying to cut to?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, so we're trying to reduce to something like you hear, like Chancellor. Let me just like be real candid and honest. Like I hear things like, oh, you know, I can't verify any of this, right? But we are trying to like be more of an online college. We're trying to be like this tiny little college. Do you know what I mean? And we don't want to do enrichment. We just want certificates and transfer. So that's what I mean about what are we trying to cut to? I meant to make it very open.
All right, well.
So Chancellor, if I may, Dr. Nunley, I think there are two things. One is, and I hope that folks do listen to tomorrow's board meeting. Dr. Alameen is, the budget update is a standing agenda item with the board. And even with his short staff, which is, he's very understaffed right now. He's been doing a great job in wrapping his arms around, quite frankly, what he's inherited. So from a simple math perspective, and I know some folks hate when I say that, our expenditures need to fall within our revenue. And even though we're in hold harmless, our expenditures exceed that. The other part that you're referring to is philosophical. That I think is some of the work that through Vice Chancellor Bogle and the Joint Enrollment Management Plan that's I think some of the questions where some of the questions are going to be answered. I don't know that we are necessarily trying to move to be an online college, but that's an interesting debate that could be had. But anyway, so I think there's two components, like you were saying, Dr. Nunley. One is from a budgetary standpoint, and the other is, and so what is the roadmap? What's City College attempting to be or preserve?
Vice Chancellor Bogle, anything you want to add to that, Vice Chancellor Bogle?
I'll just add that that Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez is exactly correct. The college's Enrollment Management Committee has been engaged in some of these discussions and has formed a subcommittee on enrollment goals and data. So to kind of speak to that, how do we, what are our enrollment goals? The multi-year budget enrollment plan that the board adopted last November set forth an overall enrollment goal of between 18 and 20,000 FTS. And really the work of between the Enrollment Management Committee and the Budget Committee is for us to figure out how we can achieve a stable enrollment of the college that also corresponds to a stable budget situation at the college.
Okay, Vice Chancellor Alameen, anything you want to add?
No, sir. That was great.
Okay, I hope this has answered your question, Dr. Nunley.
Yeah, kind of. I want to be on one of those committees though, because I got a vision too. But yeah, no, it does, Chancellor. I'm teasing, but I'm not.
Well, no, I know. I mean,
I'm not. Because one of the things I'm hoping, and then I'll get out of the way, is it kind of feels like, okay, this is Black History Month, and as you guys can see, I'm Black, right? And what always happens with the Black people, right? As soon as everything is all tore up from the floor up, then okay, now here's your opportunities, and then it's taken. So I'm hoping that in this vision that we remember all the hard work to get the BIPOC folks here, but then I love my white brothers and sisters too. So I'm like, wow, yeah. So yeah, rough stuff.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And we do hope that our goal is to have a vibrant college that serves the whole county, the whole city. You will notice that we have not eliminated a single program, even though some of the programs are pretty small. I'm glad you mentioned the Black History Month. We have many programs in ethnic studies. But we have kept all of them. We have Filipino studies. We have an Asian studies, East Asian studies, African American studies. But we're keeping all of them. We have LGBTQ studies. We have labor studies, gender studies. We are a college that recognizes diversity in all its shapes and forms. Even if we have fewer sections, we will still be offering sections in all those areas. When we offer a schedule of more than 2,400 sections per semester, we should be able to have sections for all the various programs that we have on campus. So, but at the same time, we cannot function as an institution if we are only functioning at about 72, 73% capacity. It means that we are not scheduling our classes the right way. If we are an efficient organization, we should be functioning at about 100% capacity. The efficient schools function at the rate of above 95%. It means that we are scheduling what is needed, we're scheduling what is required for our students to be able to move from level 1 to level 2 to level 3, etc. We can anticipate the people that are coming. We can anticipate how many students taking level 1 will go to level 2. That's what we are doing. We are making the school become more efficient. We're scheduling more efficiently, but we will continue the service that we provide to the community. And I thank you very much for asking this question, Dr. Nunley.
Thank you. I love that. If we were in church, I'd say, let the church say amen. I like that, Chancellor. Thank you.
Sean?
All right, we have time, I think, for one last really quick question. Sally, why don't you go ahead?
Hi there. My question is, if the college makes money by having students in seats and registered, and if the CTE classes in non-credit, especially in ESL, provide even more funding per student than credit classes, how can you justify cutting classes and especially devastating non-credit classes? You're not going to make money if you have fewer students. Cutting classes is cutting students.
Well, thank you for asking that question, Sally. I think Vice Chancellor Alamin said earlier on that currently we are on hold harmless. Okay. And that hold harmless, the college is receiving apportionment based on 22,300 full-time equivalent students. That's what the funding is right now for the college. But currently the college is only generating 18,900 full-time equivalent students. That's roughly 3,400 full-time equivalent students that we are getting money for that we do not have. And with all that money coming to the college based on 22,300 full-time equivalent students, we can't even make payroll. 92, 93% of that money is going towards salaries and benefits, okay? Now, what is going to happen to the college when the college receives apportionment entirely on the 18,900 students? You're going to see a lost income of $20 million. Not only you won't be able to make payroll, you are now going to have salaries and benefits at 110% of your income. You won't be able to pay your utilities bill. You won't be able to take care of the buildings. We won't be able to do anything. So that's why the 4-year budget and enrollment management plan was put in place to prepare the college so that when the hold harmless goes away, in 23-24, the college will be in a position to still make payroll and function. You want anything to add to that, Vice Chancellor Alami?
You said it as well or better than I could have said it myself.
Vice Chancellor Bogle, anything?
Sorry, unmuting. No, I think that's it in a nutshell.
Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez, anything you want to add?
No, I agree with Dr. Alameen. Well said. Thank you.
Okay, well, we thank you very much for attending today. And we hope to see you at the board meeting tomorrow. And well, I don't have too many more of those open forums for you. I got 4 more to go. March, April, May, and June. All right. So you will all have a great Wednesday evening. We'll see you tomorrow. And I'll be back on campus next week because we're going to be back in the red. So if you visit the campus, come see me in Conlon Hall. I may perhaps be all by myself there with some staff from HR. So I look forward to seeing you on campus next week. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.